other way of looking at this cause is when you are looking into the cause of the universe, okay, but the cause of anything, there are two types of causes. Okay. One is what we call efficient cause, the maker, and the other one is what you call material cause, okay, which is what we call upadana karana. So you have in any creation, for example, this mug, two causes are involved. The person who makes the cup, and then the material from which the cup is made, which is the steel. Okay. Now, in the case of creation, as I had said earlier, the question starts with whether there is a creator or not, right? People can contend that no, it's all just nature and it's just kind of, things are just emerging. So not everybody, there are many people who we call Nastikas, who don't believe in any God or any cause of the universe. They think it's just the nature and everything is random and things are just kind of evolving, right? Now, when we look into the creation, we use a logic and we say anything which is intelligently put together must necessarily have a cause. Right? So for example, when there is a cup which has a particular form and then it can perform a given function, and if we say, oh, just the pieces of steel just came and they just, gathered themselves to be like this, and then some other pieces came and they gathered themselves to be like this, right, to create this form, how believable that is. Okay? So that is not very plausible. Okay? So then when it comes to a creation which is so very intricate in nature, where you see the eyes, eye is a masterpiece. Okay? We think the cameras have a very wonderful technology, but the camera is what you focus and then you click and then it captures the image. And what about your eyes? Every second, it doesn't take any long. It's not like you have to focus, then you have to click, then you have to, there is no such thing. Okay? And if you look at the mechanics which is behind the eye, it is just mind-boggling. You go to medical school and you study ophthalmology for a very long time to understand all the different intricacies of how eyes work. Okay? And even within the eye, you have further specializations, retinology, right? That you have people who become more and more specific and they spend years trying to study this particular phenomena called eye. Okay? Then you have a range. The human eye has a given range. So it captures a certain objects within a certain frequency and in a certain form. Okay? Now if you have an eye of an animal, the eyes are programmed slightly differently. So the objects that you see in a given way, they don't see in that way because the frequency with which they capture the image is a different frequency altogether. Okay. But they also all operate from a certain range. All the dogs have a certain range. All the human beings have a certain range. Within that, there is a unique difference between you. So you can imagine the mind-boggling intelligence that is at play here. The birds are able to see, these eagles from so many feet high, they are able to see down. It is just incredible, that capacity. So for each of these things, which are then the human body, then the body of an animal, the body of an aquatic creatures, it's all kind of, they all have their own kind of circulatory systems, it has the digestive systems, it has everything, it has certain way to breathe in. So you have all these things which are in all these different forms, which are amazingly intelligently put together. Okay? So when there is an intelligent creation, then it is more likely that there is a creator than to think that things are random. Okay? This is just a plausibility. It doesn't prove anything. It just says that, yeah, when you see something which is highly intelligently put together, there is likely to be a creator. Okay? Now, when there is a creator, then you have to then find out the second question. If there is a creator, okay, what is the nature of the creator? Okay? So any creation, in order to understand what is the nature of the creator, you need to answer two questions. Okay? Which is that, what is this creator? Okay, so any creation requires two different types of causes. One is the maker and the other one is the material. Okay, so then you have to ask this question, that if there is a cause, okay, who is the maker? What is the nature? What does it mean, the maker of the universe? Okay, and then what is the material that was used to make the creation? Two questions. Okay. In order to answer that, there is oh wow, Surya has all these props for me. So he keeps telling me to bring it and I keep forgetting it. So now that he's brought all these fancy things, let me use it. Okay. So you have all these wonderful objects. Okay. So when there is a now let's use this pot, now that the pot is here. Now there is a creator of pot. What is the necessity that as a creator of pot, what do you need to have? The maker of the pot.
Clay.
You have to have the material with you,
Yeah.
but you must have the knowledge, right?
Yeah.
You must first have the knowledge, right? That is conceived first and then you make it happen, right? So you must have the knowledge and you must have the capacity. Two things, right? And then you need the material. So now, in case of, there is a Sanskrit logic, ghata karta, ghata is pot, karta, the maker of pot, is what? Ghatagnaha, the knower of pot. That is first conceived, as Sarthaka says, it's first conceived in the mind and then it actually manifests in form of a physical pot. Right? Now, sarvasya karta, the creator of everything, has to be what? Knower of everything, sarvajnaha. Okay, ghatak karta ghatagnaha, patak karta patagnaha, sarvasya karta, the creator of everything is sarvajnaha. This is what we call all knowledge. This is what we got the glimpse of, this all knowledge yesterday. Right? Now one thing is, as I showed you a little bit yesterday, that this intelligence is in and through everything. Right? Now, the other way of appreciating this presence of intelligence in a very kind of immediate way is to look at all the different laws that all knowledge is manifesting in the creation in form of all the different laws. So that means that when there is a physical law, there are many laws of physics. Starting from gravity to thermodynamics to electromagnetic, there are all these physical laws which govern the universe. Okay, so that is where you see that intelligence which is at work at every given point in time to make this universe continue to happen and function in the way that it functions. Okay. Then there is not only physical laws, you have the laws which govern how the plant kingdom is working. Okay. The fact that the plants take the energy from the sun, they give out oxygen and they take in carbon dioxide. Each plant gives whatever fruit, with whichever properties. All this is part of the law. Okay. So this is what we call botany. So this is where you see the presence of all knowledge. So that means it's not just an abstract concept, oh, all knowledge is putting things together. It becomes much more concrete in my understanding of things. I see it everywhere. Okay. then there is a law which makes everybody's physical body what it is. Every organ, the functions that organs perform, okay, the liver, the kidney, the respiratory system, the stomach, the whole digestive system, all this is something which is what we call human anatomy. Okay, so that is the laws of physiology, and because it is a law, there is some uniformity, and this is why you can then come up with any medicines, right? That if it works on one liver, it is not that the other liver is totally unique and doesn't follow that. It follows certain laws. So when it works on one thing, one human being, it is most likely going to work with the other human being. Okay? So you have laws of physiology. So this is, each of these disciplines are nothing but a partial glimpse into Sarvajñatvam of Ishwara, of all knowledge. It's a given way of looking at this all knowledge, one given aspect. That all knowledge, when I capture in form of how does the universe work in terms of physical laws, I give it a name called physics. When I look at the work of all knowledge in form of how the plant kingdom works, I give it a name, botany. When I see how the human body works, I give it the name, physiology. Then I look at how the cures can be done, it becomes medicine. Okay. When I look into how a human mind works, there are certain laws. That you have had these experiences, you will grow up with that given mindset. So this is what we call law of psychology. Okay? These are all glimpses into the all knowledge that is already there, manifesting in many different ways, making the universe what is. Okay? So that's an immediate understanding of the presence of Ishwara. And even that so-called all knowledge and all intelligence, which seems little vague, is concretized in my understanding. Okay. Now, the next question is, how does this all knowledge create this, what is the material that is used, right, to create this universe? In the case of the pot maker, the clay was available externally, and then he used the clay to create the pot. Now here we are talking about the creator of the whole universe. Okay? If there is already material, then already there is creation. You cannot presuppose logically, right, that the creator has used some material from outside, right, to put it together to create this whole universe. Why? Because the creation is yet to come about. If the creation is yet to come about, there are no objects that I put together. So the only logical possibility is, which is what the Veda is saying, that the creator is both the efficient cause, nimitta karana, and also material cause, upadana karana. Upadana karana, material cause, in the sense the material is also all knowledge. There is no other tangible material in the universe. Okay. And you can ask, if Ishwara is the all knowledge which is the material cause of this whole creation, as we have seen before, we have said that where is this Ishwara? I don't see it. But I have shown you how in each of these things there is a presence of all knowledge. Okay? How these atoms come together, combine to become with the property of clay. There is the presence of all knowledge there, right there. Okay. So in and through everything, there is a presence of all knowledge. So that the fact is that all knowledge on one hand becomes all these different objects in the universe. The objects, from the quantum objects to all the tangible objects, in and through everything. Yesterday somebody asked me this question and I have to reply because it was, I think Prakash asked me this question. That, that generally when we do this analysis, that when we say, okay, now this pot, the pot is nothing but clay, then clay is nothing but atoms, particles, then you would think that you're just going down and down and down, and then you're coming to this all knowledge, right? And then when you go down further, you're coming to this existence and consciousness, right? So you create in your mental image some linear kind of a thing, and then down in the bottom there is this so-called truth. Okay? But the reality is not like that at all. Okay? That all knowledge is at every level. Right? It's not at the bottom of things. Similarly, existence is also at all levels. And consciousness is at all levels. It is invariable presence. It is like in your dream, right? You are not at the bottom of the mountain that you have created. You are not at the bottom of the water that you have created. You are in and through everywhere in your dream. You pervade everything. Okay? So this all knowledge pervades everything at all given point in time. Constantly, this all knowledge is all the time manifesting in laws, manifesting in form of objects, governing their interaction and making it all happen. Okay? So it is both the efficient and material cause, and being the material cause, the maker can be away from the pot, but the material cannot be away from the pot. You can never have the pot without the material cause, which is the clay. Right? So being the material cause of the creation, Ishwara, the all knowledge, pervades everything. And we can show you how. Right? Now, the very common question is, if Ishwara pervades everything, that is something which is very dangerous, because, you know, before I thought that the problems belong to me, right? All this violence, all this hatred, all this sadness, anger. But if Ishwara is everything, that means Ishwara is affected by everything. Right? Not only I carry only my problems and you carry your problems, but Ishwara being everything carries everybody's problems. So it's an entity with multiple problems of everyone of the past, present and future. So that is a huge burden. Okay, so in order to say no, Lord Krishna says in the second line, Matsthani sarva bhutani nacha aham teshu avasthitaha. Okay, everything exists in me, but I am not in any one of them. Okay, so how to understand this reality? Okay, let us take the example of my own sadness. Okay, so the sadness feeling is something which is there and I recognize it. Okay, now it is caused by the working of some neurons. Okay, can you attribute sadness to neurons themselves? No, not at all. But when neurons come together in a given way, there is a feeling of sadness. Nobody can deny that. Okay. Then neurons themselves are, again, if neurons themselves are free from the sadness, then what about neurons themselves? They themselves are made up of molecules. So molecules, at the molecular level, is there sadness? No. At the level of atoms, is there sadness? At the level of particles, is there sadness? Then what to talk of the all knowledge which combines it all at every level and gives you that experience? It's totally free from anything that happens at that level.
The experience is just at the empirical level.
The coming together of different forces gives that experience. Okay? But the intelligence which is there, the knowledge, is always free from whatever is happening at that level. Okay? And that is why Ishwara, being everything, at the same time, it is never affected by anything. That's it. That's what it makes. That otherwise, it will be totally burdened with all the universe and all the problems of the universe. Okay. So he says, "I am totally free." Similar thing. This cloth, right? This cloth. What is very interesting, our teacher this time in Rishikesh used a nice example. Okay, this cloth is an effect which is made up of cause, right? What is that cause? Fabric, right? Is there, in fact, let's use a shirt. Shirt is a better example. The shirt, because here this is just a side. Okay, shirt is a better example. This shirt is an effect which is made up of cause, which is fabric, right? Now, the shirtness, where does it belong? Does it belong to the fabric?
No.
No. Fabric is totally free. Fabric can be used to make sari, it could be made to use pants, it could be used to make anything. Then the question is asked, how can a non-shirt be used to make a shirt? Everything which is non-shirt, every fabric, every yarn is a non-shirt, 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 non-shirt. All the non-shirts come together and make a shirt. This is magic. At every level it is like that. A non-given thing makes that given thing. It's logically impossible. Okay? The fabric itself is nothing but yarn. So each yarn is not fabric. So all the non-fabrics which are yarns make it into a fabric. And then the yarns themselves are fibers. Okay? So the fiber is not fabric. All non-fabric makes into, all non-fibers makes into a yarn. All non-yarns make into a yarn. Right? So at every level, the previous one is totally free from the characteristic of the subsequent one. You should not assume that this is only the reality in case of this Vedanta. Right? At every level in the universe when you see, it is true at every place. Right? So this is where these are all as though attributes which get accumulated at every level. And that creates this complex universe which has so many causes within causes within causes within causes for one given thing. And forms within forms within forms within forms within forms within forms. There is a very nice and that intelligence is always free. So this is what Lord Krishna is saying, that even though I pervade everything, I am totally free from the attributes of creation and all the sufferings or anything that happens, all the happiness, anything. Not only, why should we only think about the bad things, even all the good things, everything. Anything that happens, any attribute which is there in the creation, right? It is totally free from it. And this is what is matter for you to understand. It's not just matter for you to say, oh yeah, Lord is never affected by anything. It's not just a matter of repeating. It is for matter for you to see this reality. Okay? So the next verse, it goes even further, right? And that I think refers little bit to Prakash's question. Okay? So it says, Nacha mat sthani bhutani Okay, I'll chant. Nachamasthani bhutani pashya me yogamaishwaram bhuta bhunnacha bhutastaha mamatma bhuta bhavanaha. So on one hand, you can say everything exists in me, okay? But on the other hand, you can say that I'm not connected to anything, okay? I never actually became the creation. That is something, you know, on one hand, the wood can say that I am the cause or the truth of the table. But on the other hand, the table says, the wood can say, I am only wood. Right? This given form is a form for which you have a name called table, but I have not really undergone any change in the first place. Okay? Intrinsically, the wood has not undergone any change. Like the milk becomes a curd, the wood has not undergone any intrinsic change at all. It's just put together in a given shape. Okay? So on one hand you can say I am the cause of the creation table. On the other hand it says, where is the creation? Show me the creation. There is no creation at all. All that is here is only wood. There is no second thing. It's not that there are two objects, table and the wood. Okay? So this is where we ask that if you take it at a greater level, we are always asking for purpose of creation. Lord Krishna is saying, where is the creation? Show me. All that is here is me. That is, if there was a real creation, I have to answer, why is there a creation? Okay? But if there is, in fact, really there is no creation, there is all that is, where is the creation? All that is here is all knowledge, which manifests in many different forms. Okay? So you can turn around because there is no real creation. We are not postulating a real creation which should have a real cause and a real purpose. What we are saying is that there is only one reality which has not even undergone a change to become the world. It remains as it is. From its own standpoint, it is just as it is. Right? So this is where he says, Nacha matsthani bhutani. But at the same time there is a creation. Pashya me yogam aishwaram. There is an appearance. Nobody can deny that there is an appearance of creation. But at any given point in time, you look at anything in the so-called creation, it resolves in this all knowledge. And that all knowledge is not behind, but it's in and through. And that all knowledge is never affected by any as though properties which are taken on at an increasingly complex level. Never. Okay? So this is what Lord Krishna says, that Nacha masthani bhutani pashya me yogam aishwaram. Okay? That so I am the creator, the sustainer, and also unto which everything resolves, and I am always free from anything that is existing. Okay. Now, in order to understand this fact, the example is given in the next verse. Yatha kasha sthito nityam vayu sarvatra go mahan tatha sarvani bhutani masthanityupadharaya. Okay. So he says that just as the Akasha is the space, it is all pervading, okay, in which Vayu moves, right? Vayu is the air, it moves, right? Similarly, in me, which is equated to Akasha, every being moves. Okay. Now let us look at the example and let us see what it has to convey, and let us also see any example is never representing the reality totally, because there is no second thing which is exactly like Brahman, right? So every example that you give is only highlighting a given aspect. It doesn't apply in every given way. Okay? That is very important to understand. So one thing that we have to understand, which is, this is a useful example, that if I ask you what is inside here, what would you say?
Space.
Space, right? So then you say this is a pot space. So that space seems to be confined by the pot, right? Now, is there something which is specific, which is pot space, which is only here? No. When I move this pot from here to here, does the pot space which was confined here moves from here to here? No. The reality is that the space is always undivided, one, and the pot moves in space. The space does not move. Okay.
Maybe we can't say that, right? We don't know whether it really moves.
No, space doesn't move. Scientifically, it doesn't move.
I mean, space meaning air.
Space.
Suppose there is smoke in the pot, right?
Yeah.
Which is air, right?
So
You move the pot.
air is moving. True. So air is moving, but the space doesn't move. This is scientific. Yeah.
Okay. I took space for air.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So the air moves, obviously, yes, air is in motion, but space doesn't have a motion, right? So this is a very important thing. Similarly, if you think about, let's talk about existence and awareness, right? Existence and awareness, which is the truth of Ishwara, right? Does that move? Being the very truth of the space itself, does it move? No. Right? So that means that I feel that I am the consciousness, and then when I move from one point to the other, does the consciousness move? The consciousness doesn't move at all. Consciousness is everywhere, right? Wherever this so-called pot moves, the space as though seems confined. But space is never actually confined. Okay? The consciousness which seems to be you, right, is actually only, it seems like this is a cup space, this is pot space, this is this green cup space. It seems like there are many different spaces, room space. So there are many different spaces. And each one is confined and distinct from the other, because this space is different from that space. It seems like really true, right? But the reality is that there is only one space which is never divided, which is never inside or outside, right? In which everything else moves. Okay. Similarly, the existence and consciousness, which is the truth of Ishwara. Ishwara is talking from the standpoint its own truth, right? Everything moves in it. Just like Vayu, what he is saying. Why is this analogy used? Vayu moves in space, right? Everything, every object, time moves, space moves, right? Every object within time and space moves, right? In me, but I am totally stationary. Nothing divides me. Nothing restricts me. Right? Now, this is the example that he is talking when he says that I am like Akasha. Right? He is talking from the standpoint of its Ishwara's reality. As we have seen in the morning, that all knowledge, right, is something which again is dependent upon the truth, which is consciousness. Right? There is no possibility of all knowledge. So you can say the truth of Ishwara is consciousness. And that concept, Ishwara knows that reality. With reference to, we will see in the next verses how this reality is not known to us, but it is certainly known to all knowledge. Right? So the truth of Ishvara, which is Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahman, is known to all knowledge. Okay? So in that everything moves, but itself is something which is stationary, nothing divides it. Okay? Now let us see where this example does not work. In the case of Akasha and Vayu, they both enjoy the same order of reality. Okay? Akasha is one thing, the Vayu is something else. Right? In the case of the whole creation, time, space and objects and existence and consciousness, are they two different things? Like Akasha and Vayu? No. They have the relationship of what we say Satyam and Mithya. Okay? One is the reality, the other one has a dependent reality. It as though comes into being. Everything takes place, all the so-called dependent, within dependent reality, everything takes place. The independent reality remains exactly what it is, unaffected by anything that takes place. There are no two, it's not like Akasha is one thing and Vayu is other thing, two mutually exclusive. You are not me and I am not you, right? We both belong to the empirical level and one is distinct from the other. I have no dependence on you as such, right? There it is not the same relationship. So it goes even further, right? It's like in the dream world, all the events that take place, does it affect you at all? And they all happen in you. All the motion, all the events, everything takes place in you, while you are totally unaffected by it, and the characters are there because of you. They cannot exist without you. So having come into being, all the actions take place within that, all the crying, happiness, all the frustrations, everything goes on in the dream world. But no character divides that you, the person who's dreaming. Right? Here it is exactly the same. Okay. Now, the second thing which is talking about, which is now we will spend time here because it's very important. It says, Sarva Bhutani Kaunteya Prakritim Yanti Mamikam Kalpakshaye Punasthani Kalpado Vrisujamyaham. It says that all these bhutas are born of Prakriti, which belongs to me. Okay, and as I had said in the morning, Kalpakshaye Punasthani, we look at the whole creation as cyclical. We don't have a linearity about it. I will talk about it now. Okay, so there is at the time of the what we call Big Bang, there is we don't take it as a creation, we call it as a manifestation, and at some point there is a resolution, and then there is another manifestation. Okay, this is how we look at the creation, and there are infinite cycles. Okay, so when we talk about here with reference to science, when we talk about the beginning of the universe, which is at the time of the Big Bang, according to our tradition, it is the beginning of a cycle, and before there were many other cycles. It's not that there was nothing before. So there have been many cycles before, and this is what he is saying. Kalpak Shayat, everything resolves in me and everything again becomes manifest. Resolves, becomes manifest. Resolves, becomes manifest. And there are countless cycles of creation. Okay? Now, what makes it possible for this all knowledge as I had said, any creation requires the knowledge as well as the capacity. Right? So that capacity, the all knowledge has that capacity, which is what we call in a potential form, which is what we call, there is a name for it, which is what we call Maya. Okay? So before the creation, a given cycle comes about, what is there? There is all knowledge. Already the knowledge is there, that there is time, this is the way the time is going to manifest, this is the way the space is going to manifest, this is the way every object is going to manifest. It is all there. Right? Now, but that is in a potential form. So that potential is what we call Maya. Okay? The Maya is a technical term which means that all knowledge in a potential form is what we call Maya. With reference to then at a given point in time, that potential becomes a reality and it does manifest. Whatever knowledge is there in a potential form, it does manifest. Okay? So then there is what we call manifestation or creation. Okay? With reference to the creation, the same all knowledge which was in the potential form, which was called Maya, becomes what? Ishwara. It becomes Ishwara because Ishwara is a relational term. It means the cause of the universe. Before the universe comes about, you can't call it the cause of the universe because the universe is not yet there, has not yet manifested. Like how I said, Nirav cannot be right now called a father because the son is or daughter is yet to come. But there is a potential. It is there. Okay? But when that happens, when he becomes a father. Right? So that means all knowledge in the potential form is what we call Maya. When it becomes manifest in form of the universe, we call it Ishwara, the cause of the universe. Okay? And that all knowledge has the capacity to manifest in form of the universe. And the capacity is twofold. The capacity is what we call Vikshepa Shakti and Avarana Shakti. Vikshepa is the capacity to project as time, space and objects. Okay? And also within that projection there is what we call Avarana Shakti. That if everything is manifestation of one reality and if everybody knew it, there was no problem. But every entity that comes into manifestation doesn't know that fact at all. Each one of us take ourselves to be isolated, tiny beings, different from everything else. So that means each one of us is born with ignorance of what is. Okay? And that which is ignorance, avidya, from the standpoint of an individual, from the standpoint of Maya, it is the capacity to will.
To will.
Will. Okay? To cover. It's like a cover.
To block.
To block. Okay? So this is what he says Prakriti. Okay? Maya Dakshena Prakriti. Okay? Sarva Bhutani Kaunteya Prakritim Yanti Mamika. Okay? Kalpakshaye Punasthani Kalpado Grisrujamyaham. Okay? So that means that Shakti, which is Vikshepa Shakti and Avarana Shakti, projects. Within that there is a potential for some forms to know this reality. At any given point in time, if you have a human or equivalent body and the thinking faculty, you can look into the creation and you can find out what is really the truth of the creation. But that possibility is not given to every entity in the universe. It's not given, we will talk about here, he talks about, there are so many, the animals are not given that entities, then they talk about the other celestial beings, they are not given that capacity, right? Because they are mostly what we call bhokta, the enjoyer, they are not karta. The kartrutvam comes with the so-called free will. Free will comes with the understanding of what is right, what is wrong. Okay. Yesterday, I think Neera was asking this question that when, I think you gave the example of that person who's doing his job, right? Butcher, right. So I wanted to talk about it slightly because I thought it was an interesting question. Okay. That butcher was doing his swadharma, right? So that swadharma, when you do something which needs to be done, will come under which of the four categories? Artha, Dharma, Kama or Moksha? Exactly. It will come under Dharma. Right? So that means that he is following Dharma. And following Dharma, what did we say? The person will have Punya and Papa. Right? So here he is doing a good action, means he will have Punya. Now, what we had said is that none of these dharma activities will lead to moksha. So moksha is another activity altogether, where I need to know the nature of I. Then he asks this question, if that dharma is not really getting him what moksha can give, is he progressing in life or not? That was an interesting question. Okay? Because it falls within dharma, and we have said moksha is the one which gives you the highest. So by doing that, is he moving forward or not? Okay? So in one way, no, because what will give him the ultimate is this knowledge, which is actually removing this wheel that we are born with, but the capacity that we have to remove that wheel through inquiry. But on the other hand, yes. Why? Because to come to this point where we begin to ask the question, we begin to question the so-called the status quo with which everybody lives, you require a special punya. Without punya, that shift does not take place from just being a dharmic person to being a mumukshu. It cannot take place. Okay? So therefore, in one way, you need a lot of punya to come to this point that you become a mumukshu. Right? To remove the veil, you need knowledge, but karma helps, because karma gets you that punya which will lead you to this inquiry, give you an opportunity to expose yourself to this inquiry. Okay? And all that is part of the prakriti. Okay? How? And this is where you have to understand that in addition to the laws that I have already mentioned, which are the laws of physics, biology, botany, physiology, psychology, anatomy. In addition to all of that, there are two laws which apply to my life. Okay? Law of Dharma and law of Karma. That is also manifestation of Ishwara. This is where Neera was saying, yeah, but why do you want to instill fear in people that, oh, if you do something, then something bad will happen? It's not instilling fear, it is understanding the presence of certain laws, in light of which you become more responsible as a person. And you don't just look at your short-term gains, because there are long-term losses that are involved. Okay? So incorporating this understanding of dharma and karma is something which is a manifestation of Ishwara. It is, that all knowledge manifests in form of dharma, which I had already mentioned. that dharma manifests in form of a human being knowing what is expected of me by others and what I expect of others in terms of my behavior. So this is what you call samanya dharma. It is a universal value. Then, as Prakash was saying, there are some things which are specific to the culture. There are cultural norms. Right? Now, those cultural norms get mixed up as values. Right? But they can always be questioned. There are some societal norms. Something as simple as, in some cultures, the women they don't show their legs. And in other cultures it's totally okay. And then people say, oh my God, look at this, the values are lost in this country. But this is not a value loss or anything when people change their clothing habits. It's relative, right? Or things like dating, that oh my God, we have lost our ethical, these are all cultural norms. Something which is considered very normal somewhere else, where you, in fact, if you don't have a date, you feel that you are useless in some other culture. And here dating is something which is, generally kind of a no, and you hide and you do it. But these, when we talk about universal values, we are not talking about societal conventions. Okay? Because they are open to debate. You can always say, the advantages, the disadvantages, and you can always talk about it differently. But then there are other things which are universal values which are not cultural norms. They apply to every human being at all times.
So we need to know what those
what those
laws
are. Exactly. So the basic ones are, these few basic ones, right? Ahimsa, non-violence. Not speaking the truth, that not the absolute, but not cheating. These are all the kind of universal norms. There it is not whether you are American or Indian or you are Chinese or Japanese, it doesn't really matter. Okay? And this is what we call about the law of Dharma. Law of Dharma, when we talk about, it is that universal values, those universal values. And they are born in a human psyche equally in every culture, across cultures.
So again, in that there will be a split when you talk about ahimsa.
Yeah.
Ahimsa is non-violence, not killing any being, right? So it's not a universal. It may not be a universal law because the main food for a certain society is only by killing animals.
That is a very important question. What is the time, sir? We have only 5 more minutes. Okay. No, this is something which is okay. And as I had said, that every value, even though it is universal, is in fact one of the very thing which is very different in our culture from every other culture is, even though the values are universal, we don't take them as absolute. Okay, we take them as relative, because the world is relative. The world in which we live is relative. It's empirical. Okay, in the empirical world there is no absolute, actually speaking. Okay, so but at the same time you can't just dismiss it. It is universal. So the dynamics have to be understood properly. Let us first take this value of ahimsa. Okay, so ahimsa is a general rule. But at the same time, none of us can totally avoid harming also. Sometimes just by walking from one place to the other totally unintentionally, you kill, so many bugs, especially if it's a monsoon season and all. So nobody is free from ahimsa. I mean, nobody is free from himsa in some ways. Right? Now, then you can justify and say, oh, anyway, nobody is free from himsa, so let me also slaughter animals and eat them. You can say that. But there we say no. We can say that here it is unintentional, there it is something where I'm using my free will, right? And I'm slaughtering an animal, or I'm participating. I don't myself go and slaughter, but I participate in this act which actually kills a being, right? So I'm responsible for that act. I can't just get away from it. I can't just say that, oh yeah, because I'm born in a given culture with a given habit, so therefore I'm going to continue. Maybe up to a certain age, yes, but after that, all of you, everybody is given a certain faculty to think, and one can use that free will to make different choices. That freedom is also given to us. And if I make a more responsible choice, I will have a better result. That is also a fact. That is law of dharma. Ignorance is not, you can't just say, oh, I didn't know. Because you have been given potential to know also. And you have been given the potential to make better choices. So you have to think through things. Because eating is one activity that we do 3 times in a day. It's not a small activity.
Yeah. No, from our perspective, yes, we know vegetarian, should not eat meat.
See, it's not,
right?
yeah.
But from a different culture, it's been there, their only main food is meat.
That's true.
So they don't even think that vegetables are a part of their food. So it's not, according to them, it's not wrong, right? So
Neema, I did a bit of searching about it. It's still unconclusive. But definitions of violence, beginning with what was in Gandhism and then in Norwegian scientists have been trying to think through. One thing which has emerged so far is Hinsa is inflicting pain with a desire to cause harm. Okay, that's one possibility. It's got nothing to do with eating meat, not eating meat, killing, etc. It's got nothing to do actually in the wider perspective. His desire to inflict pain, inflicting pain with a desire to do harm.
That inflicting pain, when I don't think about it, it actually, and I can think about it. See, when a lion is a non-vegetarian, it's not unethical because it's programmed, right? Here I can choose a life where I do least harm. I have been given. I know that nobody likes to be killed. In fact, most of the people who eat meat, they go to the slaughterhouse and they see the fear that the animal is suffering from, and the kind of, it is just, it's a very cruel act, right? But just because you are not present, you don't think about it and you don't realize it, and then you say, oh yeah, I'm free from that responsibility. But the law of karma doesn't work like that. When you have that possibility, this is what the tradition thinks, right? When you have the possibility, in fact now, those lines are very not true. Because you go sometimes to the US, you are finding more vegetarians there than in India. And in India, there are people in the name of fashion and in the name of modernity, people are eating meat. So, these kind of theoretical things that, oh, here we have all the opportunities and abroad they don't, it's not really capturing.
My comparison was really not in that sense.
No. But what I'm saying is, as a human being, you can choose a life which is least harming, and by being a vegetarian, certainly if you do it not out of just a habit, but if you do it out of a choice of understanding what you're doing, then certainly there is some punya. There is no doubt about it. Okay, but it out of a conscious choice. Some people just are born vegetarian and remain vegetarian, and by default they don't harm. That is good. It's good that but when you make a when you understand the implication of what you are doing, right, then that means you are having a more responsible life. Okay? You are living with more responsibility. So this is what you call.
They are vegetarians.
So I'm not talking about whether people should be vegetarian or not, right? I'm talking about law of dharma, right? And law of dharma is, I'm not giving any prescriptions here, right? I'm not I'm not telling you should do this, you should not do this. I'm not prescriptive. Whether Norwegians do it or Indians do it is not my concern. Okay?
I think the choice is always going more to more sattvic lifestyle.
Exactly. So that choice human being is
Any
given.
living beings
Yeah.
won't want to be killed by others.
Exactly. So that is the thing, that I don't want to be killed by others and others don't want to be killed by me, right? So that is the basis.
Yeah, basic.
That is the basis for himsa, ahimsa. Okay? And we all deviate from that. It's not that nobody lives a totally dharmic life in this world. But the more conscious you are, the better the results. That's all. Right? Because there is a law there. Right? The more my actions are in keeping with the law, the better the rewards are. And the more I am oblivious and more ignorant, the less the results are conducive. That's all. Right? Then there is a law of karma is exactly that. That if you make actions which are not responsible, then there are consequences. The consequences are seen consequences and unseen consequences. So this is all which is carried forward. We will talk about how these consequences are carried forward, that we don't really know in what way, in what form it will be carried forward, but there is a logic to make you see that how the consequences are carried forward through our own experiences, okay, which gives a more reality to this law of karma. We will see that in the next class. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha.